Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Historical Conquest Adventure Box Podcast. So I might just take the Historical Conquest part out and just call it Adventure Box Podcast. So this is the podcast that has to do with the curriculum that we're giving out or that we're selling with Historical Conquest. But if you don't have the curriculum, that's okay. It's just a great addition to what you're going to be hearing. And the reason why that is because it comes with a book on the topic of the month with all the stories, all the units, everything you need to know. Because in this podcast, we won't be going over all of it because there's so much to go through. So we're going to go over the highlights of it, and then you can actually read more into it and do your own research. We are all about research here. We want you to look more into everything, question everything. And there's a reason for that. In this episode, so this is the first week, we're asking you to just read through the overview, which is about 26 pages. And yes, it's going to probably take you 4 days to do it. But we have 4 days basically of history class every week. And so with this unit, this episode, what we're going to go into is we're going to give you a head start on next week, but we're also going to show you the reasons why I have to keep on clarifying between fact and theory. Fact, again, is set in stone. It's what everyone agrees with because it's been proven time and time again. Theory is something that people can agree on, but that has not been proven fact time and time again, which means anytime that someone comes back and peer reviews what is given in anywhere, in a book or just a theory that's being spread, a peer review is basically where somebody else from the same, like an archaeologist, another archaeologist or historian comes back and reviews what was said in that paper. And then from that point, they work together to fine tune it if it's not right or test it again. If they are not getting the same results every time, especially in science, this is a major thing when it comes to science. If you say this is a fact, it has to be proven every single time it is tried. That makes it a fact. The fact that my body is made out of flesh and then bone inside is a fact. I don't have to see the bone because it's been tried time and time again, where they've cut in to see that there's bone. Now, again, that's unless it's altered, but that overcomes the fact with something additional. So if you see that there's a scar here, it could have been an incision. The theory could be that there's a plate holding my two bones together. Again, that would be a theory unless you cut it open. If there's no scar here, then the assumption, again, still assumption, is that there is actually bone underneath my skin. And I'm not going to cut it open to find out. Though, interesting enough, if you know my history, I have had 3 open heart surgeries. So underneath the shirt, you can actually see my scar going all the way down. But I have proof of what's in there because I have taken pictures, or I've had other people take pictures of my heart. So yes, everyone, it is fact that I have a heart. Now you, on the other hand, it is also fact that you have a heart because you could not live without a heart. So putting these assumptions together, if it's proven time and time again, it can become fact. Otherwise, it is a theory. Now, why do I keep bringing this up? Why did I bring it the last time? Why did I even bring it up the second episode? It's because of, especially in ancient history, there is a difference between fact and theory. Because no one at this time lived back then. So I did not live, or I did not visit 2000 BC. I did not have any writing from that time either. 2000 BC, a lot of places they did not have writing. Some places were actually starting to develop in the later part of that time. But one thing that we want to stress is that anything that we bring to you, we will try to distinguish between fact and theory. If something has been proven, then it will be fact, proven time and time and time again. If it is not, it is theory. Most of the things that talk about ancient history will be theory because it's all done by historians and archaeologists who can have biases, who can have assumptions, and we give the best possible aspect to anything in history. But the question is it 100% true? Well, I'm going to show you today how some people have gotten things wrong, but it's based on the best possibility of it being correct. So, scientists are not, they are fallible. They have done false things, or not on purpose. Some have done on purpose. Most of them have not done on purpose. They have instead, they've given as best they can do, and we fill in the blanks. So let me show you this. I'm going to bring up a YouTube video, or at least 3 of them that I've set up for this. Okay, so this is very important because this will actually show you some of the things that I'm talking about. Okay, so starting this video.
In 1939, Matthew Stirling had just arrived in Veracruz, Mexico for a new season of excavations at the site of Tres Zapotes. Stirling was searching for answers about a relatively recently identified civilization in Mexico, the Olmec. Tres Zapotes had already been identified as an Olmec site, but at the time, not much was known about Olmec civilization. There was only a delicate consensus about who the Olmec were. Most scholars assume that this civilization was a fairly recent player in Mesoamerican history, and that they would have been contemporary with the classical Maya in the second half of the first millennium CE. It wasn't an unreasonable conclusion at the time. Remember, this was before carbon dating was being used in archaeology, and back then the best way to date Mesoamerican civilizations was by stratigraphy, or even better, by cataloging the dates on their monument inscriptions. Stirling, however, suspected that this civilization was much older. Unfortunately for Stirling, he had no hard proof to back up his theories. That is until one day when he chanced upon an incredible discovery, a broken Olmec stela with a partial date inscription. Although the second half of the date inscription was missing, he and his wife Marion deduced that the date on the stela was September 3rd, 32 BCE, by far the oldest written date ever recorded in Mesoamerica. When this was published, it was hailed as a great... Oh wait, actually, no. It was immediately derided by their colleagues as the incredulous result of overenthusiastic speculation. Everyone insisted that the Olmec civilization could not have been that old. Bummer. But not for long. As luck would have it, the Stirlings would be vindicated in the ensuing decades by carbon dating and later by the discovery of the rest of the stela by a local farmer, which allowed archaeologists to verify the Stirlings' proposed date. They had been right all along. This discovery stunned the academic world. It proved the true antiquity of the Olmec and showed that they were the first major civilization in Mesoamerica. Last episode, we examined the Norte Chico, one of the first civilizations of the Americas. In it, we discussed how the Peruvian coast was a cradle of American civilization, and how those pre-ceramic civilizations laid important foundations for later Andean cultures. But Peru was not the only cradle in the Americas. In Mesoamerica, there was another one, on the Mexican coast. So just like we did in our last episode, let's examine the origins of Mesoamerican civilization by exploring its first great civilization, the Olmec. Many aspects of Mesoamerican culture, such as calendars, ball games, and the Mesoamerican pantheon, can be traced back to Olmec influences. And these influences were tremendous. Before we can discuss the Maya, the Zapotec, the Toltecs, and the Aztecs, we need to examine the Olmec and their contributions to Mesoamerican civilization. Unfortunately, the Olmec left us no discernible written histories, nor any oral traditions. All that is known about the Olmec comes to us from archaeology or from the study of subsequent cultures. As much as we know about the Olmec, we are clueless about some basic facts, like the language they spoke or what they called themselves. In fact, the name Olmec comes from the word Olmen, a Nahuatl word meaning rubber people. Rubber was produced by the region's inhabitants as far back as Olmec times all the way until European contact, hence the name. Just keep in mind that Olmec is the name retroactively applied to them by modern scholars. It's not a name that they would have used themselves.
Okay, so this film, we've actually shown you one of the great examples, the Olmecs. People actually thought they were actually part of the Mayan or the Aztecs or a similar group during that same time. But then they found out later on that they were actually one of the first civilizations to be in that area. So this is one of the things that shows how we might have assumptions, but somebody might come along and say, hey, I found this thing and it says this. Well, then that has to be tested. There have been people that come up with their own theories after another theory, say, oh, the first theory is wrong because I have this theory. And then the second theory gets proven incorrect. So it's in history, it's back and forth. It's not always 100%. You can't trust exactly what's being said, but you can trust that this is the best that we have possible right now. So when we're teaching you about history, we want to show this. Now, Monday, we're going to be talking about the Olmecs. I think we're going to do an overview, and then no. Sorry, that's wrong. We're going to go up to North America, and then we're going to go to Central America. So this will give you a little bit of a head start on what we're going to be doing. But as one of your activities, you're going to be getting clay to make, as you saw in the picture, what they call colossal heads. And so I want to give you another example of how people get some things wrong. So in this next one, we'll watch a little bit more about the Olmecs.
The stone head sculptures of the Olmec civilization of the Gulf Coast of Mexico, 1200 BCE to 400 BCE, are among the most mysterious and debated artifacts from the ancient world.
Okay, one other thing that I need to clarify. Okay, so in the book, we actually kept it BC and AD. Up until about 20 years ago, everything was counted by BC being before Christ and AD being after death. And the reason why that is because they've been doing it for generations. They have been mapping everything out based on that timeline. Then, because of political correctness, people came out and said, hey, we're not all Christians, so we don't want to have this, which is fine. I'm not saying anything bad about that change, but people started saying, well, we want to do BCE. That way we keep the BC and we just add an E to the end. So basically what it means is before common era. So ERA. Before common era. And then this AD or CE, instead of being AD after death, it's now common era. So before common era, common era. And common era is everything from 0 all the way up. So again, we kept it AD, BC because of this one fact. And this is a fact. Before, about 20 years ago, it was all AD and BC. So when you do your research and you actually get authentic, original text, it's going to be in AD and BC. So, not to complicate, but of course, we already complicated it. Because all of a sudden now we're doing all BCE and CE. So this is why in our text, you're going to go back and read books and find resources that say AD, and you're going to like, what's AD? Well, this is why I'm explaining it to you. So in this video, and actually the last video, they said BCE and CE. Before 0, after 0. However you want to do it. This is why you need to know. And this is why we do AD, because of in original text, you will see BC and AD. Okay, sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to put that out there.
The most agreed upon theory is that because of their unique physical features and the difficulty and cost involved in their creation, they represent Olmec rulers.
The truth is that it's not actually settled upon, and it's not even the most prevalent, because the distinction is it's either Olmec rulers or their gods. Gods. It's a mixture. So it depends on who you talk to, which archaeologists you talk to, which historians you talk to. There is a mix. And so there is no understanding exactly why they were built and what they were built about. So if it was about a ruler, whether it was about a religious person or even a god to them. So Just wanted to clarify that.
17 heads have been discovered to date, 10 of which are from San Lorenzo and 4 from La Venta, 2 of the most important Olmec centers. The heads were each carved from a single basalt boulder, which in some cases were transported 100 kilometers or more to their final destination, presumably using huge balsa river rafts wherever possible and log rollers on land.
So this video doesn't explain it, but the way that they found that out is they actually did scientific studies on the rock, and they know certain places where these rocks are actually found. And so they knew that they had to be transported to the areas because there were no boulders like that in that area. Again, sorry for interrupting.
The principal source of this heavy stone was Cerro Sintepec in the Tuxtla Mountains. The heads can be nearly 3 meters high, 4.5 meters in circumference,
That's
and
a big
average
head.
around 8 tons in weight.
So you can't say your sister or your brother has a big head because these are big heads.
The heads were sculpted using hard, handheld stones, and it is likely that they were originally painted using bright colors. The fact that these giant sculptures depict only the head may be explained by the widely held belief in Mesoamerican culture that it was the head alone which contained the emotions, experience, and soul of an individual. Facial details were drilled into the stone using reeds and wet sand, so that prominent features such as the eyes, mouth, and nostrils have real depth. Some also have deliberately drilled dimples on the cheeks, chin, and lips. The heads all display unique facial features, often in a very naturalistic and expressive manner, so that they may be considered portraits of actual rulers. The scholar M.E. Miller identifies Colossal Head 5, for example, as a 2nd millennium BCE ruler of San Lorenzo. Although the physiognomy of the sculptures has given rise to unfounded speculation of contact with civilizations from Africa, in fact, the physical features common to the heads are still seen today in residents of the modern Mexican cities of Tabasco and Veracruz. The subject often wears a protective helmet, which was worn by the Olmec in battle and during the Mesoamerican ball game.
Actually, in the next video I'm going to show you, they're going to find out that they've never found any kind of resemblance of those hats anywhere. And if it was part of the ball game, why would the ruler be wearing that, or the ruler be wearing it in for combat? There's nothing to show that it was actually that, which is why, again, it's an assumption because there's nothing to use to prove it correct. So, question.
These can vary in design and pattern, and sometimes the subject also has jaguar paws hanging over the forehead, perhaps representing a jaguar pelt worn as a symbol of political and religious power, a common association in many Mesoamerican cultures.
Let me also specify this. If you saw it, you would have seen in, I think it was this video earlier, how they had writings. And, oh, actually it was on the first video. They had writings from different Native American, or sorry, different Mesoamerican tribes. Well, interesting enough, those were the codexes. I talked to you about them yesterday. The codexes are very important because that's what spreads the information of their history and also the religious text. So what happened to some of the codex? When a new leader came in order to control that people, he had to destroy their history and their religion. And so the codexes that you saw, there are only a few still in existence because of that. We had an exhibit come here to Kansas City, And that's one of the things that they talked about, that a lot of their codexes were destroyed. They said, oh, it's because of Columbus. But it wasn't actually of Columbus or the Spanish that came in. Most of the codexes were destroyed each time that a new leader came into power because they want to take control over it. Anytime that a new tribe took over another tribe, they would destroy the codexes in order to have it. And remember, there was no mass production, so there were not a lot of codexes. So when a new conqueror comes in, he knows exactly where those codexes are and can destroy them quite easily without them being hidden, which some were still able to be hidden from them to be able to be kept. When questioned, they actually did agree that some of them were actually destroyed by their own people or by other tribes. Why people like to say it was just the Spanish, I don't know. But of course, the Spanish did a lot of the same things. They wanted to come in and make people not believe in the religions of the past. Not usually the history, though. A lot of the missionaries, and you will actually go over this, a lot of the missions that were set up, the friars that went there, we'll go over all of them, but they actually kept a lot of those records because they wanted to preserve them. So it's not always cut and dry, as some people would like to say. Again, sorry for interrupting.
Colossal Head 1 from La Venta, instead, has huge talons carved on the front of the helmet. Some heads are also recarvings of other objects. For example, San Lorenzo Colossal Head 7 was originally a throne and has a deep indentation on one side, and Altar 5 from La Venta seems to have been abandoned in the middle of such a conversion. Miller suggests that perhaps a specific ruler's throne was converted into a colossal portrait in an act of remembrance following that ruler's death. Many of the stones are difficult to place in their original context, as they were not necessarily found in the positions the Olmecs had originally put them. Indeed, Almir Reed suggests that even the Olmecs themselves regularly moved the heads around for different ritual purposes. Another theory is that the heads were used as powerful markers of rulership and distributed to declare political dominance in various territories.
Interestingly, I'll put the links below. But one of the interesting things is that there are different opinions and ideas when it comes to this. And I'm going to show you an opposing theory on a lot of this. Now, not everything, but this one, Graham Hancock, is actually an author of, some would say, pseudoscience, which is like science from another direction, having alternative thought processes with it. And maybe some of his theories are false, but that's not the part that I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you basically how he agrees with and somewhat disagrees with some things that are being said in that video.
It's considered to be the earliest high culture of Central America. Everybody's heard about the Aztecs. Everybody's heard about the Maya. But before the Aztecs and before the Maya, there were a culture who are referred to as the Olmecs. Again, we don't know what they called themselves. That's what the Aztecs called them. They called them the Olmecs. It means the rubber people because that rubber producing area of Mexico. They worked in giant megalithic constructions. What they're most famous for is these huge carved human heads, which can be on a scale of up to 20 to 25 tons in weight, and which have curious features which have been interpreted variously as Polynesian, African, don't look like classic Native American features. But one of the things I've realized is that there is no classic Native American feature. That Native Americans have a very complex genetic story with very many different elements brought into it, and we shouldn't be necessarily surprised by the supposedly non-Native American look of these Olmec heads.
What do we think those helmets were that they were wearing?
nobody knows, because no physical example of such a helmet has ever been found, just like no physical example of an Egyptian pharaoh's crown has ever been found. All we see is the stone reproductions of them.
Do they universally wear these helmets in these
They pretty much all wear these helmets in the Olmec stonework. There's another fascinating figure from La Venta, one of the Olmec sites, which is the earliest ever image of a plumed or feathered serpent. The feathered serpent is a famous icon in Central America. Quetzalcoatl, who's the god of peace, the bringer of civilization, who is associated, for example, with the famous pyramid of Kukulkan, which is just another name for Quetzalcoatl at Chichen Itza, where on the spring equinox a shadow effect creates the image of a serpent coiling down the stairway and joining with the carved head of the serpent. There's the image from La Venta. That's the earliest image of a plumed serpent in the...
If you're seeing the video here, you can actually see
sitting in the middle
this.
of it, and I made a big deal out of this because I think it is a big deal in Magicians of the Gods. Sitting in the middle of it is this human figure who's holding this strange bag in his hand. And it's just a fact that those identical bags are found in ancient Sumer in the hands of individuals who were considered to be civilization bringers, and they also show up on Pillar 43 at Göbekli Tepe. I call them man bags. And in that case, at Göbekli Tepe, we know they're at least 11,600 years old. So I wonder if we're looking at a sort of badge of office of a group of civilizers who traveled around the world trying to bring back to life a lost...
Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of this. Okay, so that's the point. So whether you agree with one and not the other, the best possible understanding of these things is what we're showing you. The things that are most accepted by archaeologists, most accepted by historians. But will they be proven incorrect in the future? Maybe, possibly. But is it important for us to know history, even if it's not 100% what it's supposed to be? Yeah, it's essential that we learn about history because it's the best possible way for us to look forward. We learn from the past so we don't repeat the same issues that they went through in the past. So I wanted to give you this little episode. It's to go with the first week, which is a very light week. We're not giving you that much to do. The next few weeks will be a lot of information, a lot, very quick, very in-depth, but not in-depth all on the podcast, in-depth in our curriculum and in your research, because we're going to ask you to actually go into each of them. So say you have a group, maybe it's one of you. You might have to read through a lot of them. Pick the units you want to read through. So you're going to get, let's say Mesoamerica. It's a great one. You have the overview. And then you have the Olmecs, the Olmecs, the Aztecs, and the Mayas. And you could choose all three, or you can read one of them, or you can read two of them. Olmecs, I recommend, because it's the cradle of history in basically North and South America, Central America. Basically around the South America or the Central America. Inca is also a very old tribe or group. So two that are very interesting to learn about. But when you're talking about that 1 week, I suggest you read the overview. Everyone read the overview. Look at the different units in that week and say, okay, I want to read that one and I want to read that one. And be good with that. Now, that's if you have one person. Now, say you have like 3 people, whether it's in your family or your class. Maybe we have 5 groups. Each of you pick one tribe or one unit. When you're reading that unit, be ready to present it to everyone, because that's the best way for you to learn it. And it's also the best way for others to learn it, is to see things that you are excited about and things that you know about this group that you think they need to know. And even though it's, again, history, there's so much there. You can do a whole degree on just Aztecs. But, of course, you're in elementary school, middle school, or high school. You're not going to do a full history or a full class or a full degree on one thing because you have so much to learn about. So we're going to go over everything as much as possible, and then we're going to have you choose what to go over, what to do on your independent study, independent time. So this is essential for you to know because we want you to get everything you can out of it. And the best way of doing it is if you have multiple people, everyone takes a unit, and then on Friday, Monday, you talk through the overview. Tuesday through Thursday, you go through the unit, you do your own research, you read through your own unit, and then on Friday, you all present it. You present your tribe or your group or your part of history, your event. And that way you can share with everyone and everyone can learn together. This allows you to retain the information because you're teaching it. It also allows you to learn a lot more from other people. So we're going to keep you up to date and focused on exactly what you're supposed to be learning on that week as you come. So this is all I have for today. It was fairly light. It wasn't about the actual curriculum, but it was about an important thing. It's to understand fact and understand theory. You're going to get the same thing in science. Math, it's fact. There's math facts. Because facts, math, has been proven time and time and time again. 2 plus 2 equals 4. 1 plus 1 equals 2. That's it. There are facts when it comes to math. Now, when it comes to number theory, that's different. Again, number theory. Going back to science, science does change. It's been changing for decades, for generations. It'll continue to change as we get more information to come in with the science. But the science that you're taught in class is the closest possible to what they can come to as fact, or what most of the people in science agree upon. There are some differences, but with history, it's the same way. So this is why this is so important. So thanks for hearing me out, hearing this preparatory podcast for when we start going into North America and the Native American tribes. It is fascinating. You're going to have so much fun. I'm going to tell you stories. You're going to learn about different places. It's going to be amazing. And I will tell you more about that as we come. So thanks so much for joining me, and we will catch you next time. Take care. Have a great weekend. And we will see you again on Monday with North American Native Americans, North American ancient history. Take care. Bye-bye. If you have any comments or questions, add them to the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow, actually. Take care. Bye.